All right, so today we're going to look at client application security. A couple things we're going to look at in this chapter. We're going to look at the steps for securing a client device. We'll define application security. And we'll also look at how physical security can be used for protection. Now, I've said in the past, it doesn't matter how good my security is on the software side. If I can walk into the room and walk out with a computer, it didn't do anything. So we look at securing a client. A couple of ways we can do this. We look at using hardware system security, securing the operating system software, but also protecting any peripheral devices that are connected to the client. Now, when we talk about the hardware system security, we look at this. A couple tools we can use on this is secure booting tools. We'll look at a hardware root of trust and also preventing electromagnetic spying. So when we start looking at secure booting, we're going to start with the BIOS. BIOS, we know that it is the firmware. It's used on early computers to hold the boot process. Now, to update this, you would flash the BIOS. You would update the BIOS with a firmware update. That did open the door, though, for a threat actor to get access in, to inflict the BIOS with malware. So to combat this, they've developed the UEFI to replace the BIOS. Now, with this, we also use the secure boot security. So we use these together. So what it does is it checks the digital signature each piece of the boot software. Now with this, the signature is deemed valid if the computer boots, and if they're not, the computer will not boot. So we look at the booting process with the BIOS. We'll see we had the BIOS. It would go out and get the master boot record. Then we go to the bootloader, and then finally the operating system. When we talk about a chain of trust, that's where each element of the boot process relies on the confirmation of the previous element to know that the entire process is secure. So it's, let's say, because the previous version passed, we know that one is secure, so this one is going to pass, and then we know that everything is secure in that. We have a hardware root of trust. Now with this, we're going to look at this and say the strongest starting part of this is the hardware, because you can't modify the hardware without physically replacing it. So our security checks are going to be rooted into hardware checks. We also look at electromagnetic spying. All right, so what happened here is that researchers have found it's possible to pick up electromagnetic fields and to grab the data that is producing them. They're able to read that data. So the U.S. government developed a classified standard which was intended to prevent attackers from picking up electromagnetic fields for government buildings. And it was known as the Telecommunications Electronics Material Protected from Emanating Spurious Transmissions, or Tempest. They like giving long names to things. We do have to worry about the supply chain infections. Supply chain is a network that moves a product or device from one place to another. So it may move from the supplier to the customer. So in there we got different steps. The supply chain is going to open the doors for malware to be injected into the products. These are called supply chain infections. Now these are considered dangerous because of these examples here. So if the malware is placed in the ROM, firmware, or device, you'd be difficult to discover or even impossible. Users may be receiving affected devices at the point of purchase, so you'll be unaware of the infection. It's not something that can be easily prevented because sometimes it's out of your hands. You're going to your supplier and purchasing the hardware device. You're purchasing things of that nature and putting it in. So something you can't easily prevent with this. We're talking about securing the operating system software. Before we get into that, we need to know what type of operating systems exist. So we'll see on the screen here we have our network operating systems. Software runs on a network device like a firewall or router. We have a server operating system. That's going to be something like Microsoft Windows Server. It's going to run on a network server and provides resources for the network users. Workstation OS this is your Microsoft Windows. This is the operating system that's going to be running on the client computer. Appliance OSs, these are things that are either used to manage a specific device or something like a video game console. Kiosk OSs are systems and user interface software for interactive kiosks. These can be Windows, they can be Chrome, Apple, among others. And then you have your mobile operating systems. Those are operating systems for your phones. Your two most popular are your Apple and your Google Android. Does have Microsoft Windows here listed as well, but it was a very poor operating system. All right, so we're looking at securing our operating system. A couple things we need to set in our security configurations. We need to disable unnecessary ports and services. Disable default accounts and passwords. We need to employ least functionality. And application whitelisting and blacklisting. So we're saying this is what applications can run, or these are ones that these can never run on this device. Now we can also have tools that will automate this process. So we don't have to go in and reset and reconfigure these settings on each device. So Microsoft Windows, for example, you have a security template. It's a collection of security configuration settings to be deployed to other devices. You also work with patch management. So as the operating systems have increased the size, network tools have new attack tools have come out that made secure functions vulnerable. So we got things like a security patch. It's where the software is going to be updated to when new attacks and new vulnerabilities are discovered. So they'll have a security patch. This is why you see a lot of the older operating systems are no longer supported. You know, if you look at Microsoft, you'll see things like obviously like Microsoft 98. They're not updating this anymore. XP, Windows 7. Okay, so they're moving everybody to 10. Feature updates, these are things like provide new features. These do not really address security functions or vulnerabilities. And a service pack. These are where they take the security updates, they take the additional features, and they put them all in one big upload or download, one big update. Now we have some tools we can use for patch management. We have tools for patch distribution and patch reception. So with the patch distribution, now sometimes when you get a patch, sometimes these can cause more problems. So we need to make sure that they're tested before we push them out. So for example, if we have a patch that breaks a piece of software that we're using, our softwares are not compatible, maybe something is developed in-house. We may have to go back and look and say whether or not we can adjust the patch or adjust the software to make sure everything runs correctly. You have automated patch update service, which manages the patch locally rather than relying on the vendor's online update service. We have some advantages of this. So you download patches from a local server, it can save bandwidth. The administrators can approve or decline updates, force updates to install by a specific date. And they also obtain reports on what updates each computer needs. And you can also approve updates for detection only. So what that does, it allows the administrators to look and see which computers will require the updates without actually updating, without actually installing it. So we'll see an example here of the automated patch update service. Okay, so these are downloaded to the patch server, update server, and distributed as needed. All right, patch reception. So today, patches are automatically downloaded and installed. This is to ensure that the software is always up to date. And Microsoft has changed its security update procedures and user options. So now it's got 4 states. You have no selective updates. They did this to be a more efficient distribution. Let's see an example of the Windows 10 update options. So in here we'll have things like the update history. You can check for updates, stuff of that nature. Now, a couple other things we can install is the anti-malware. These software packages they can use to provide additional security. These packages include antivirus, anti-spam, and anti-spyware. So when we talk about antiviruses, this software will examine the computer for infections. This searches for known virus patterns. And it may, depending on the service you have, it may be one that protects you in real time where it actually scans every document that's being downloaded or every file that's being downloaded. It may be one that only scans when you run a scan or when you schedule a scan. Now, most of these antivirus programs will allow you to schedule scans. Some of these will run only when you click to scan my computer. Some of them will have manual updates where you have to go in and tell it to update its virus definitions. Some other ones feature, some of them are free to use. Some of them have a paid subscription. Some are free, but then has a paid component that gives you more functions. The weakness of this is that vendors must continually search for new viruses, update, and distribute signature files to the users. I want to add another update on here that a weakness of this is that the users actually has to download these on some of the antivirus programs. They have to download the new definitions. All right, so we also use the dynamic analysis. So in there it spots characteristics of a virus instead of attempting to make matches. And we're going to get this at code emulation, where that questionable code is going to be executed in a virtual environment. So it's going to look it over there, it's going to put it in a sandbox, and it's going to run that code to determine whether or not it is a virus. Anti-spam is a mail gateway. It monitors email for spam and other unwanted content. It's not perfect. Spam can slip through and get into your inbox. But the anti-spam filtering software is supposed to trap the spam. Once again, it's not 100%. Nothing is 100%. It's still up to you to be vigilant and make sure that you're not clicking on links that you're not supposed to. Now, some filtering methods we have, you can create a list of approved and non-approved senders. Blacklist are the non-approved, the whitelist are approved senders. You can also block certain file attachment types. Anti-spyware, it helps prevent computers from becoming infected by different types of spyware. Some of these are just annoying, like the pop-ups. Small windows appearing over a website, and it's usually going to have you an ad or some type. Some pop-ups you will need, like when you click on a link in Blackboard, sometimes it wants to open up, for example, going to Mind tab. You have to allow that pop-up. Pop-up blockers are a separate program as part of the anti-spyware package. These are incorporated within a browser. Allows the user to limit or block most pop-ups. It also gives you an alert, gives the user the options to display the pop-up. All right, our trusted OS. So a couple of things we'll talk about here is the OS hardening. That's tightening security in the design and code into the operating system. Trusted operating system is an operating system that's been through the hardening. And we got a couple different techniques here. We got the least privilege. You've heard this a lot in this course, the principle of least privilege. So with the least privilege here for this technique, it removes all the supervisor and admin accounts that can bypass security settings. And it provides the least privilege unit to a user or process. So once again, we're telling the user of the process, this is what you need to do your job, and that's all the access you're getting. You're not getting any more than what you need to do your job. We can reduce capabilities. So it restricts what resources can be accessed and by who. You can set it for a read-only file system, where that looks at the important operating system files. These can't be changed. They can only be read by the computer. And you have kernel pruning. So it removes all unnecessary features that may compromise an operating system. We have to protect our peripheral devices. Anything that's going to be connected to our computers or to our network. Some devices that need to be secured. Anything using the SD input or output cards. Digital cameras, external storage. Here we got 4 families of SD cards. Some of these have integrated wireless transmission capabilities. So if we have anything that's connected to Wi-Fi, we have to treat that device with the same standards that we use for securing a Wi-Fi network. A couple ways we can protect digital cameras. Okay, these use internal storage, and they also use SD cards. So we got 3 different classes, speed classes we're not going to get into. But to protect these SD cards, a couple ways you do this. You can password protect the card. You can use encryption on the card. Or you can write protect the card by moving a small external switch to the open position. Now, that last one, if somebody has physical access to the card, it's very easy for them to just flip it back and then they can have full control over the card as far as being able to write to it or delete images from it. External storage devices. These, we've talked about the crypto attacks, the crypto malware. Okay, these are still something that is subject to those attacks. So if we have an external hard drive hooked up to the computer, so the crypto attack comes in and attacks, it can still go in and encrypt all files on that network or any attached drive. So this is something that includes secondary hard drives, USB hard drives, storage devices that are network-based, network servers, even the stuff that's attached to the cloud. Okay, if it can get to our folder is sending stuff to our cloud server, it can attack it. So some protections that we can have for these. So if we have an external USB drive, we can just unplug the drive from the computer when it's not in use. Okay, we just use it, attach it when we need it. Secondary hard drive, you can unmount the drive when it's not being used. Network attached storage device, create a new folder and create a new user account with a strong password. And you log in and out of that. Cloud storage is turn off automatic synchronization so that files are replaced in the folder not immediately synced to the cloud storage. Because what happens if you have a virus that gets in that? If you have the crypto virus, the crypto malware that goes into your network, into your cloud storage folder, and it's automatically sent to the cloud to where all your other files. That that malware that's going to attack those files out there, it's going to encrypt those as well. We also have to look at multifunctional devices. These are things like something that combines a printer, copier, scanner, fax machine, all in one devices. Some protection for these recommendations: make sure it's in a secure area when you install it. Change default passwords, turn on hard drive encryptions. You want it separate from the network server. Link the print management software to existing data loss prevention. Minimize the risk of paper-based theft by using secure job release. Make use of semi-visible watermark technology. And if it has a hard drive, when you dispose of it, you know, the internal hard drive needs to be wiped, removed, or destroyed. I always recommend destroying hard drives when you're getting rid of any device. You know, if there are software out there that can be used to recover files that even you think are deleted. All right, so like I said, even our displays, even though they're passive peripherals, they can be attacked. So the threat actor can attack the display's firmware, which allows them to view what's being projected onto the display. We also have to protect, as I've said repeatedly in this class, we have to protect the physical security of our devices. This includes the external perimeter defenses, the internal physical access security, and the security for protecting the hardware devices itself. All right, so now the external perimeter is designed to restrict access to equipment areas. Okay, these are things that we look at some of the defenses: barriers, guards, motion detection devices. We look at these, you know, barriers are things like fences. So we want to put a fence around our building. A cage is a fence secure waiting station area. So we may have a fence within inside of a fence. We got that cage there. So if you're going to visit something, a secured facility, you may have to go into the cage area, and you have to sit there until you're approved to go further in. It's just building another layer of security. Barricades, the large concrete ones, should be used. You know, if you got this little wooden barricades, we've all seen it in the movies where cars just bust through them and gain access where they're not supposed to be. The bollard is a short but sturdy vertical post used as a vehicular traffic barricade, which is used to prevent cars from slamming into a secure area. We've seen an example of those here. You guys have all seen those in the past. Now, the barriers are great. We also need to consider the human element security guards. These are called an active security elements. Video surveillance cameras or something can be used. So you really, if you're doing something on your perimeter, you can set this up to where you want to use more than just one type of security. Barriers are great. A fence is great. You still need some ways so that people get in and out. You need to put a guard there, a guard shack, put a guard in there. Cameras are great as well. You can have motion detection, which determines an object's change in position in relation to its surroundings. So we see that some of these here, different types of method for motion detection. They may generate an alarm. It may, generate some type of thing to deter access. Probably one you're most familiar with would be the motion light. That when you walk into a secure area, a motion, a light come on. You guys probably seen them in your houses where you have the security lights outside, pick up, move motion and come on. All right, a couple things we'll talk about. Internal physical access security. These include door locks, access logs, man traps, and protected distribution systems for cabling. All right, door locks. We're all pretty much familiar with door locks. They're on every door. You know, some of them use keys. Some of them use have a deadbolt. Some of them may be a cipher lock, which uses a combination of buttons. Must be pushed in the proper sequence, and those can be programmed for a certain individual. We'll see some examples here of some of these different door locks. Now, a couple of ways we can use these. We can also use these in conjunction with key management. So we keep track of the keys issued and required, or we could require the users to sign for them when they receive their keys. We may have it where they have to receive the proper approval before they get the keys. Most keys you'll have do not duplicate on them for this type of purpose. And they may wipe out the manufacturer's serial number. For example, the one I have to the rooms here that was issued, it does say duplication prohibited on them. And I do not see any serial number on those. Now you may have some rules on here. For example, you secure unused keys in a locked safe, and you change locks immediately upon loss or theft of keys. Okay, access list. This is a list of who has permission to go into a secure area. It's also record the time they enter and the time they left. You can use cipher locks and other technologies nowadays that will create an electronic log. Okay, this is why it's important when, and you'll see this in the social engineering techniques where people try to gain access to facilities. You'll see a lot of times they'll walk up and they'll have their hands full, and they'll ask you, "Hey, can you grab the door for me while you're going into a secure place?" Our human nature is to be nice to people. Our human nature is like to help. Or they'll ask if you could swipe your card to give them access into the building because they got their hands full. Now in that situation, if you do that, if you swap your card and they come in with you, or you hold the door for them and let them just walk on in, there's a record of you going in there on that log, but there's no record of that person. So if you run into that situation, if you run into a situation where somebody says, "Hey, I got my hands full, can you hold the door for me?" And first of all, you refuse to do that. You refuse to sign or swap your key to let anybody in to a secure environment. Maybe you offer to swap their card, say if they have their card on attached to their belt, or you offer to hold their package while they swap the card. But it is a very bad thing for you to swap your card and let them in. All right, man traps. These are rooms that are going to be separate from a secured, say separated secured from a non-secure area. Now, with a man trap, they're going to be, think of it as a room with two doors. And the two doors won't open at the same time. All right, so we see an example here. It says used in high security areas where only authorized persons can enter, such as cash handling areas and research laboratories. So what it is that you go in the front door, the first door, that door shuts, and then if you're allowed to go into the next area, then you're allowed to proceed. So it's really used as what it says. It's a man trap. So if you don't have permission to go to that next room, you're stuck. You're stuck in that room. Protected distribution systems. All right, so in this we got cable conduits, they're going to be used to provide protect classified information that is traveling between two secure areas, that is being transmitted. This was created by the U.S. Department of Defense. And we got two types of PDSs. You have hardened carrier PDSs, which is conduits constructed of special electronic metallic tubing. And you have alarmed carrier PDSs, which are specialized optical fibers in the conduit that senses acoustic vibrations that occur when an intruder attempts to gain access. So we'll look at an example of these here. It's basically what this is. It's there to try to stop people from cutting into that wire and splicing into it to gain access to create a man-in-the-middle attack, so that they're able to gain access and then place some device in there to listen or intercept traffic. All right, we have to protect our hardware. So we look at our hardware security. Computer hardware security is defined as the physical security protecting the hardware of the host system. If you look at most portable devices, okay, they're going to have some type of little place in them where we can attach a steel bracket security slot will be there, or we can attach a cable. Maybe we can, if we have laptops, they can have a place in there where a cable can be fed through them so they can lock the desk. You also may have a secure cabinet or a safe. And some of these can be pre-wired for power or for network connections, and they allow the devices to be charged while being stored and also receive any updates they need to have. All right, so we've talked about protecting the operating system, software, and the host. We also have a need to protect applications that are running on these devices. So we can do this through three different ways. We have application development security, secure coding techniques, and then code testing. Application development is going to have 4 stages. You have development, testing, staging, and production. Now we got 2 different life cycle models, the waterfall and the agile model as well. So when we're protecting our applications, our secure DevOps methodology, this includes security automation, continuous integration, immutable systems, infrastructure as code, and baselining. Baselining is like, this is what the computer should be doing. This is what the application should be doing. We also do provisioning and deprovisioning. All right, so DevOps is going to be based on the Agile method, where there's continuous modifications through the process. We also need tools that have, we need to use the tools that support change management. We can also look at one of the tools here that's the version control software, which allows the changes to be automatically recorded, and if necessary, we can roll them back to a previous version of the software. So if we get to the point and say, oh, wait a minute, we got a problem here, last version worked, let's roll it back. With coding techniques, we've got several coding techniques that we use to create secure applications. A couple things that we need to look at in here to determine how encryption will be implemented, but also how memory management is handled, so that we don't have any more memory vulnerabilities introduced into our applications. We'll also look at the code testing. So we'll go through the process, and we're going to begin the process of model verification test. We're going to use that at the beginning of our process. So we make sure that our application is going to meet all of our specifications that we need it to at that point. So we go through a couple different tests. We go through the compiled code testing. So in there we're going to look and we're going to see if there's any errors that can prevent the application from properly complying from source code to application code. So we're saying, okay, is there something in here that's not complying with our security? Is there something in here that's not allowing it to actually compile? We also look at runtime code testing. So we compile it. We have our program ready. So then we're going to run it. And we're going to see if there's any errors are happening, anything that's stopping it from running correctly. Let's get into something we're going to do in a sandbox for the most part. So we'll put it in the sandbox, make sure that it's testing correctly. And we also do that so it doesn't interfere with any other software or any actual protection or production that we are using live. We got some other types of testing. There's static program analysis. There's tools to examine the software without executing the program. So they look at the source code, it's viewed, and it's going to be analyzed. You have dynamic analysis. It's a software technique that deliberately provides invalid, unexpected, or random data as inputs to the program. Stress testing, where we put the application in under heavier than normal load. Make sure that it is performing well and it does handle all of our errors correctly. And then we look at integrity measurement. So in there we see it's a mechanism designed to be able to convince a remote party that the application is running only a set of known and approved executables. All right, so security, Chapter 9. We've talked about the physical security, securing the building, securing the interior of the building, the exterior, securing devices. We also talked about securing the operating system and also secured applications.